Hi YouTube. We're here with the aerocommander today, and I have a project to add some different details to this thing. Because while it is beautiful, I want it to have some more scale details. And it's fun to add little scale details to these things. You can see I've got these things taped on here temporarily. Those are a couple of the little antennas that I'm going to put on there. But anyway, I just wanted to show you the process I go through to make this happen. Usually I just start a new Google search, and then I type in aerocommander, and then I look at images, and I scroll through and I say, okay, what type of antennas did they have? Hey, look at that one. That's fancy. And this is how it all starts, and then the next thing you know, I see something like, ooh, windshield wipers, or something stupid like that that I just can't live without, and then I see completely different planes and simulator planes, and I take and refine that search to a list like this. And this list, each picture will answer a specific question. In this case, one of the questions that I've been working through is trying to do FAA numbers. And so I've been working on that a good chunk of the day, just on and off, nothing too stringent. And this is what I finally came down to. This is a real FAA number, so whoever owns this, if you watch this video, that'd be kind of cool. Comment. And you can see I've got that designed to sit on there. And then I've got this is a normal italics, which would be, I believe, 19 degrees. And then this is the reverse italics, which good luck doing that on Word. That's minus 15 degrees. And that'll go on this side. So, anyway, it all starts with an idea, and then you just start working your through until you end up with, and I've got just a bunch of different revisions of it, different colors. And at the end of the day, you end up with what you like. And in this particular incident, I printed this on my Brother J825DW. It's just an all-in-one. It's nothing special. Color printer. And I ran it through 3 times. And that gave me a really good, bright color that matches super close. Not exact, but it's very close. And if you wanted to get a little bit darker, you could probably run it through a 4th time. And I printed it on the highest setting possible. Now you could also put it on a better paper. This is just kind of plain white paper. So I'm going to cut those out and tape those on. And then also, I got these little, well, the other thing that happens is you get a thing of AA's that run out, and you see this plastic and you think, oh boy, I could use that for something awesome. But anyway, then you start thinking, I need some vents on there. I need some little vents on here. And so you start looking. Next thing you know, you say, ooh, I like that FAA number. Ooh, I like the way those antennas look. Whatever they are, they might not be antennas. And I like the way that they're not square on the center. Now, obviously, as you guys, the refined eye is going to notice that these are all different models of aerocommanders, but there's a ton of aerocommander revisions. Like this is a newer revision, it's like in the 70s. And you can tell because it's got the winglets, and it's got some different things up here. I believe this one, the tail goes all the way up and over too. And you can see this different type of antenna here. But look at that, we have the exhaust on the top. And then they also made naturally aspirated engines, and then they have the turbo commanders, which are turboprops. So I don't believe this was a turboprop. But anyway, another thing I found as I was doing my research is that they have double stripes on the wingtips of the propellers, not a single yellow. I didn't see one example of a single yellow. So that's another thing I look for, is just, this is fake, and it has a red and then a white, but every other single one of them was white and white, and then it was a gray blade and it had some sort of a black highlight. See, white and white. can't see in that one, but this is used for the numbers here. You can see I use this for just to kind of verify a couple of these scale details. Now this is a 500. This is an aerocommander 500 as well. One thing I did find is this is the oleo, and you can see how I did that down here. You guys have already seen that, I'm sure. But it's just to give those little scale details. Just looks really cool when it's flying by. I've chosen not to do the gear door for reasons I've explained before, but this is the limo antenna I'm talking about on my list, where it says limo antenna. I think it's a UHF antenna, I'm not sure. But I just look at these things, and then like this is for the windshield wipers. There's actually 2 windshield wipers in this one, but this is a different model. It's got the tail that goes up and over. This is it's a longer fuselage. And then this is a 500, and you can tell from the nacelle shape, but you can see the vents are opened here. And then there's this stabilizer up here. And I'm not sure what that thing's called, but this is also a newer Star because it's got the winglets and the tail. This whole tail would actually pivot, and I think they call that washout. But anyway, the point is there's only one on this more immediate match to this plane, but I think that the asymmetry will look weird. So I'm going to probably do 2, but I'm going to mount them here going in and up. So anyway, that's what I do, is I just take these pictures. You can see this is the same age, and you can see we've got the cones are stainless, well, they're not stainless steel, they're chrome. And so I paint mine chrome. So I just want this thing to look very real. And then here's another thing, is like looking at these wheels. So what I might do is I might take and just look at this wheel and say, okay, how much hubcap is exposed on the tire? And you can tell this hubcap is really small because obviously they're trying to hold the weight down. Well, we could take silver paint and paint that, or put a piece of tape on there and make it appear to be bigger. And it's really easy to pull these gear out, so we can do that super easy. So just 5 or 6 little scale details will make a big difference. And so I've got these little pieces cut out and kind of ready to go. This is another antenna that I came up with. That would be, there was a couple that you saw earlier in the series where there was some offset antennas, and I'm trying to get to the exact one. See, this one has the offset antenna here. So you can see I just kind of try to get as close as I can to at least a real example. And then the Bob Hoover plane was set up kind of different than most that I've seen. And but anyway, that's all you really need to do, is just go through and find some scale details. This is also where you start to realize that there are certain details that just they aren't ever going to be right. Because like, look where the nose gear is. That nose gear should be way up here. It should be easily further forward. But I mean, on this plane, it's still a pretty good match. So anyway, I wanted to show you those pictures first. And then one other thing is, I really kind of thought about painting this black on the front nose, but then I thought, since they went with a black finish, a simple window design, I thought it'd be a little bit overwhelming. But then I also thought about doing a black nose, because I've seen a few of these actually have a detail right on the nose, but many of them don't, like this one here. This one has a detail on the nose. So it's kind of cool to go through and just study the planes and really get these things to look right. So in case you're wondering how I do that, which, I mean, it's pretty obvious if you watch my videos, I'll talk about it. But this is what we're going to do next. So I'm going to unpause it, and we'll be downstairs in the shop ready to rock and roll on some of these changes. Alright guys, we're back downstairs. So a couple of different things I wanted to get started with first was getting a little bit of paint on these little vents. We don't need these just quite yet, the antennas. And then this is going to act as the, I don't even know exactly what that is. I think it's just another little horizontal stabilizer. But I'm going to take and paint these black, and I was thinking about painting it with lacquer, but then I got to thinking that's going to take forever to dry, it might be easier to just paint it with black enamel, and I'll let you guys decide what's best for you, but in my case I'm probably going to go with the black enamel just to get it painted up quick. Spray paint would give you a much better finish, but this is going to be on the inside of the vents. So I just thought if they were clear and then they were painted white, I think it might just look a little bit on the plain side. And this is just flat black. It's really nothing special, guys. But I always try to show the colors. So basically I'm just going to paint the inside. These are just little pieces that I cut out of that battery container. And I like to use the Q-tips because I don't like cleaning brushes. And with enamel, you're going to have to use thinner, which is not really that big a deal either. But and then I'm just going to CA these on when we're all said and done. So try to keep, son of a gun, of course I would get paint on me right away. Try to keep a clean spot, which is easier said than done. And come to realize that was out of focus, guys, I'm sorry. Okay, so we're going to pause this. Okay, so I wanted to get those going so that the black paint could be drying. And I used some thinner on a rag to clean my fingers off. If you use thinner on your fingers, make sure they're totally dry before you handle your plane, because you will not like the results if you don't. So we'll let that aside. Windshield wipers. I've had these things sitting here for a while. And I just took and cut those out of a zip tie. A thin, small zip tie. I said, boy, those look like a windshield wiper when you bend them. And so I came up with these two windshield wipers. And we'll just lay those down there. And I had thought about a couple of different ideas to try to get these things to stay in position. And I kept coming back to the idea of, well, if I decide that, you know, this little scale detail becomes overly distracting or just doesn't work well, I want to be able to remove it. So I thought, what if I just kind of stabbed it in, then used some CA? Then you're only left with just a really small hole. And as you guys remember seeing from the pictures online, it came from about halfway across the window. And it went up with just a bit of a bend. So forceps are super handy for things like this when you got small work like this to do, because you can hold on to stuff. You can really get it positioned where you want. So now I'm just going to stab that into the foam a little bit. Just kind of position that where I want it to be. And look how sweet that looks. Just the little stupid details like this, guys like me get all excited about it. And getting some CA here, foam safe. Cyanoacrylite, also known as CA. Now on this I'm just going to do just a little bit down there. And just a little bit right there. Now obviously these are not going to be functional, so we can just use a toothpick to apply a little teeny bit of CA. This is like the child-proof toothpick dispenser, which is why I have so much trouble with it. Okay, so one little drip up here. And then I'll actually apply a drip of CA to the toothpick here. Okay, so now on the other end of the toothpick, I'm going to clip well in advance of the CA. I don't want to get any CA on these blades. It's a pretty nice pair of scissors. Wipe the tip of that off, get it capped up. I'm going to go for some kicker. and just coat a little bit onto there. We'll see if that works. And if that doesn't work, then I've got another method, which is much more abrupt. And I'm going to do it here in a minute if I don't feel like it's set up good enough. But look how awesome that windshield wiper looks, guys. That's so cool. Okay, so now a second windshield wiper blade, which must have been an optional feature on this one. It's going to go in there, and we just really want to try go for symmetry here. Symmetry, symmetry. Oh, we got to cut that to make it sharp. Almost forgot. So if you look at the base of this one, I never actually cut that. Okay. Just taking the sharp edge off, just like that. To take away that blunt, flat end and make one sharp end. Now I'm going to hold this windshield wiper. Just going to ballpark it over. Now you could also measure if you were so inclined. I'm not inclined to do that. Guys, that looks so cool. Stupid little details like this. It doesn't add any real value to the plane, but it's just so dang cool. Whoops. So that's going to take care of the windshield wipers. And, you know, to be honest with you, these little details, they might take as long as doing a real project, but they are going to add a lot of fun to your life. And for mine, a lot of frustration, because it's kind of a lot of work to get all this stuff together. Okay, very good. Awesome. Okay, so we got that held down now. And the only thing I'm a little bit concerned about is that this one might want to pull up a little bit of that black paint if I'm not careful, so we'll just do a little bit bigger drip. Then I'm actually going to take this and we'll just throw caution to the wind. Oh, I hate doing that. If you've ever had that paint run, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm talking about the factory paint there. You're going to wish you wouldn't have put those stupid wiper blades on there then. But if all goes as planned, this is going to look pretty cool for bang for the buck. That's pretty cool. And obviously, if you put too much or too many of these cool little scale details, you're going to end up making this thing heavy. And so you'll want to be careful to not overdo it too bad. And try to do the scale details that don't add much weight, because then you don't compromise anything. But that's so cool seeing it stick out there. Okay, so, and as usual, I list shop. So we can cross that off. Windshield wipers. Okay. So now we need to get these plane antennas, and we need to figure out how we're going to do these. Okay. I like the placement. That's going to work well. It's going to look cool. They don't look very good right this second because the nature of the way I've mounted them. But once I get them mounted properly, it's going to look really nice. One big issue, and that is, I just don't think this, I had folded the tabs, I just cut a longer piece than I needed, and then kind of folded the bottom. I just don't think that's going to work. I think I'm just going to have to pierce in to the foam. Which, you know, if I find out it's weak, it's of limited consequence because the damage will be pretty extremely minor. But you do have to at least get it even. Now, normally I would paint something like this first, but in order to, and you see this seam here, this is where we're going to be cutting open if we need to get in there to do something like flaps later on or what have you. So I made a little detent in the foam. I'm going to take my knife and I'm just going to cut a very, 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 very small groove. I mean very small. Smaller than the piece that I'm going to be sliding in. Okay? Guys, look how sweet that looks. That's going to look nice. Now, at this point, I can see if I'm happy with the angle of insertion. Okay, now I'm going to get this one in. Get the angle of insertion right, and then we'll go back and go ahead and paint them up. So now this one didn't look as bad on the way I folded the tabs. So I think it probably would have done okay as is. Okay. Come back over here. Get back lined up. Now there was another UHF antenna, the limo antenna is what I was calling it. Because if you grew up in the 80s, as some of you probably did, they had those antennas on the limos. And you probably thought it was pretty cool if you were a kid. Or an adult, I don't know. Maybe you're into that sort of thing. Okay. So now, as you can tell, they're not glued and they're not at the right angles yet. But that's going to help me get a feel for whether or not I need to redo them or just abandon them. I'm moving so you guys can see as the background changes. That looks really cool. I like it. It's good. It's staying. Okay, so that means that I need to pick a color, and I have this gloss white, which is, as usual, it's a tester's enamel. But one thing that's a little bit of a trick when you're dealing with this type of item is that your enamel will run when you spray kicker on it. So you have to kind of make a decision how you want to paint these so that you can have success with adhesion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of tape and just kind of tape it. Then I'm going to take this piece of tape and I'm going to tape the other side here. And then worst case, we'll just have to penetrate into the foam just a bit more than we originally anticipated. And then there's a couple of different ways we could do this. I think the easy way is going to be the way we're going to do it, which is to paint it with spray paint. Because this black, it looks like it's getting pretty dry. I can go ahead and throw this out now. Because once that's done, we'll go ahead and just flip those over and spray paint them white. It's going to look nice. Okay, so the two large antennas are done. Let's talk about wingtips. Now, normally when I do wingtips of the propellers, rather, I'll just take my J3 Cub yellow is what I like to call it, which is flat yellow. Or this is called sunflower yellow, flat sunflower. And that's what Horizon Hobby uses on the wingtips. This is another color that I use a lot. But we have to pick a white. Again, I like the idea of gloss white, but I have a sneaky suspicion that the gloss white is going to be a little bit heavier. Just by the way it paints. So I'm going to try to mix this up with a stick here. And then we're going to see if we can't get those things painted. So let's we'll pause it for you. Okay, so I've got this white paint mixed, and I'm just wondering about maybe it would make better sense to at least get this paint onto the plastic here, since it's so easy to paint such a small piece. rather than breaking out spray paint for such a small project. Okay, so we're just gonna let that set up now. Looking at these wing tips, the propeller tips, it makes me quite nervous because I got a variety of different types of masking techniques that I've used in the past, and they're all difficult when you start dealing with something so small. But if you can get that detail on your wingtips, it's going to look really sharp. So I think it's worth the extra effort. So why don't we go ahead and try, and we'll give ourselves a chance to fail here. Okay, so I'm going to take this now that it's had a chance to set up for a second. I'm just going to go over it a couple of times with a dry. You don't want to get so much white paint on there that it's extremely heavy. Now this stuff is dry. They can be flipped over now. Okay, so now I'm just going to stick these right back down on this. This is just a double-sided, well, it's not double-sided tape, it's just tape that has been folded upon itself, and it's holding down the product in question. These little plastic thingies, little triangular shapes. And these are going to be the little vents that go up there, except they'd be pointed backward. I think I held it up there the wrong way. And they look really cool. I was playing with that the other day. Okay, so we'll just do it this way to keep control of the paint easier. I keep sidestepping my scary project, the project of painting the wing tips, the propeller tips. See, I'm painting this just with a stick, guys. It's just a piece of wire that I use to mix up my paints. And it works nice to deliver a very small amount of paint. Got a little too much there. Okay, so we've got that. Make sure we don't contaminate. Okay, so now I'm going to go off of this. This paint's got a lot too much on that one for whatever reason. Just pulling down and away. And if I contaminate the inside a little bit, it's supposed to just look like soot. So, not super worried if it's a perfect paint job on this. But I'll probably come back later and do a second touch-up paint job, just like I'm going to do on that. Because they're not wanting to stick real great to the double-sided tape. The homemade double-sided tape that I did here. But we'll see. Maybe it'll be fine. See if I can get it to stick back down. Yeah, it's good enough. Okay, so now these are dry enough for a second coat now. So we'll let that dry yet a little bit longer, and we'll come right back to that. Okay, so make sure your fingers are clean so you don't get white paint all over everything while you're masking. You're going to come in here and establish your pattern. And it doesn't need to be a real deep pattern, but it does need to be enough of a pattern to be seen that way. And I always do the front and back, which is it's just a ton of work, guys. But like I said, it's going to look really cool. And these just have to be 3 blades. But the really cool propellers are always 3, 4, 5 blades. Okay, so now, trick of the day, guys. We're going to take and keep this as our reference. Okay? And that'll help us to not undermine the spacing in the middle. Because the middle spacing is going to be the critical one that's going to look bad if you do a bad job of it. And they look like about even in the pictures online, in my opinion. And I'm sure there's somebody out there who knows that that's not right. But you can see, you just kind of pull that back around nice and tight. And then usually the way I get this color on there is just real, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory stuff, but I don't know, maybe you guys aren't into modeling too much. If you're not into modeling, you're probably not watching this video. But anyway, I will get just a little bit and I will dab. We're committed now. Okay. And you're not going for heavy, you're going for coverage. And I think I got heavy. But it'll for sure cover. Alright, so now we can come back and do this. So now guys, we'll be running out of time on the video here. So I'll just continue this as a part 2. And if you guys like it, don't forget to give me a like. And if you want to see some more, subscribe. If you like to get notifications when I got new footage coming out, just click the bell and request notifications. But for tonight, part 1, scale details on the Aero Commander UMX, signing out.